We cannot be saved without being humble, because James says in James 4, verse 6, therefore he says, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. A great example of this comes from the parable we read about in Luke 18, verse 9. Also he spoke this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. Two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee, the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week, I give tithes of all that I possess. And the tax collector, standing afar off, would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. The Pharisee represents all those who are not humble. In fact, he didn't have a humble bone in his body. Those today who think they are better than the rest, or they look down their noses at other people, they're prideful, and they're thinking too highly of themselves. Men and women who think this way and act this way will not receive the grace of God. However, those like this despised tax collector, who understand that without God they are nothing, this represents those who are humble. In fact, this man was so humble that he wouldn't even raise his eyes to heaven. He did not boast about what he was good at or the good things that he did. Instead, he simply asked God for mercy for being a sinner, which is the kind of mentality that we must all have. Whenever we serve God and others with a humble spirit in accordance with His will, we can know with absolute certainty that we will get to go to heaven and we'll rest from our labors. He did not boast about what he was good at or the good things that he did. Instead, he simply asked God for mercy for being a sinner, which is the kind of mentality that we must all have. Whenever we serve God and others with a humble spirit in accordance with His will, we can know with absolute certainty that we will get to go to heaven and we'll rest from our labors, as John encourages us and writes to us in Revelation 14, verse 13. Then I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and their works follow them. So in conclusion, let us always examine ourselves to make sure we're serving God and others with a spirit of humility. Never think of yourself as a doormat, because that is not what being humble is about. Don't think too highly of yourself and exalt yourself above your fellow man or God, because that is just the opposite of being humble.